welcome to another episode of The Hot Seat. I'm your host, Marie Wiese, and this is the podcast dedicated to helping Microsoft partners tell their stories. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty. This is where we ask the tough questions. And today in The Hot Seat, I have Jennifer Harris, who's the CEO of TMC, otherwise known as the Technology Management Concepts. And in keeping with the tradition of our first series and our first episodes, we got some more news to share, and we're excited to jump into that. Welcome to The Hot Seat, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me, Marie. I'm looking forward to this.
The news I'm delighted to share on many fronts is that Jennifer has just recently gotten an investment at TMC. And she is got a new group of investors who are helping her take the business to the next level. I think that's so exciting. So I'm going to kick it off with the first question that I'm sure other Microsoft partners are dying to hear. What does the Microsoft partner of the future look like? What do you think this next round of innovation and evolution is going to look like and be in the Microsoft channel?
Well, I had a lot of time this year while I was going through getting this investment to think about that. I actually started by wanting to invest in someone, and in that process, got to think about what I wanted and what the future looked like. As a Microsoft partner since 2001 and being in business for over 30 years, the future is very different than I've ever seen and exciting, but it's almost like we are startups again in a new era of technology. And I think that it is one of the most riveting and exciting and fast-paced times to be in technology, but it is also a time where everything we knew is just historical, and we have to take that and totally, as Adam Grant would say, rethink and reinvent ourselves.
I think that is a great way to look at it. And I love your observation that we all have to start behaving like startups again, because there's going to be a new way forward, a new path forward. So what's the vision for your practice? And take us through what it's going to look like 12 to 18 months from now.
I'm glad you said 12 to 18 months, because everybody likes to say 3 to 5 years. And I think that that is something that we can't imagine even at this point, what it'll look like. But for the next 12 to 18 months, I think the partner that gets in front of it and is able to pivot and take their best and brightest talent to look at how we could do things differently, not just with our offerings, but internally, how we can, give our organizations sort of a re-up and sort of when you tear a house down to its studs and you rebuild it, you still have the neighborhood and you still have the thesis of it, but it might look entirely different based on the times. That's what the partners need to do. They really need to think outside the box and take a look at their organization and re-put the puzzle pieces together.
Do you want to share a little bit about your journey with this investment, what that looked like, pros, cons, the good, the bad, the ugly?
Sure. I think in the investment community, it's always been bigger is better. Enterprise software, SAP, Oracle were the, sweet spot for them because it was a very tried and true area. And then the next thing was MSPs or people that were doing multiple different software. I think the time now of Microsoft is having a moment in time. And it was not, sort of the legacy old guy, Azure started that. And then, the tools coming out and then, of course, AI and Copilot. So as I was going through this the last 6 months, things were happening real time. It was almost like when, Harry Potter books were being released and you were actually waiting for them. And I was very fortunate to be able to attract the right investors who believed that Microsoft was having a moment. We're in the mid-market and not the enterprise. The mid-market is a little bit more economic proof, and we could actually go in and do stuff. So the process was educating the investors on what this opportunity was. And as I did that, it was allowing me to re-envision my own organization as I was visioning for them.
So, I've had a chance to speak with other people in the channel. I've spoken with other partners, and there's this real sense that half of the community is excited, poised, ready to take on what the new world is going to look like, especially the AI upon us so quickly and so forcefully. And then there's sort of half of the community who are sort of sitting back, a bit of a wait and see, don't quite know what the future is going to hold. If you had to give advice to another Microsoft partner who wants to grow their practice, what advice would you give them?
I think that it depends where you are in the evolution of your organization. If you're where it's a tried and true, well-oiled machine, it's not going to change drastically for you. I would say be ready if it does. But for the rest of the partner channel, if you're already seeing it or you're just emerging or you're reinventing yourself, I would say you have to start education with yourself. There has to be a thought leader in the executive team who believes that AI is here. It's going to change the way we know how to do business, not just us, but our customers. I would say our customers are ahead of us in some ways because they're not tech is not their business, so they're able to see it in a different way. And I would actually say if you don't believe it, find someone who does and start evangelizing within your organization. You have to use it yourself. Your organization has to use it before we can go out and sell the theory. Those who think it's hype, I say the saying, it's the worst it's ever going to be today, and it's only going to get better. And I think that, change, we saw cloud, we saw automation, cloud. This is a quicker. This is quicker. That's the difference. So in the
Mhm.
past, we had a long time to adopt, and we don't now. So the last thing I would say is if you don't do anything else, be open to it. Just be open your mind to it.
Right, right. We've had conversations, you and I, and we've talked about you really trying to. Your real goal is to transition your organization to into an AI first Microsoft
hmm
partner. What are the
hmm
first couple of things you're going to do to achieve that goal?
Well, I started doing it internally. It does take different, just like the channel, your organization will have those type of people. You'll have from developers to marketing that believe it and those who don't. So internally, it has to be every deal, everything you do, every task that you tell your organization, if there's another way to do it today, or if you think there should be another way to do it, AI first, AI first. For your customers, you have to start with the thought leadership. This is really a psychological change. And I think that once you give your customers in the initial talks and as you go through the process, that same dialogue, you know, what's a pain that you want to be solved, but also, and what could you have that you never thought you could have that would take your business to the future? And, competitive advantage. Do you want that? And so I think it's a psychological first, AI first, and then how do we meet that credibly without it being, some, like technology we've done in the past. We're going to do a tech revolution, digital
Right.
transformation. It has to be more real and concrete.
I think those are all excellent points. And I know that as human beings, one of the things we struggle with the most is change. People
hmm
don't like change.
hmm
But I think your point about innovation in particular, and we've talked a little bit about the importance of a Microsoft partner having that innovation roadmap for a customer.
hmm
This is
hmm
how we've done it in the past, but
hmm
this is the opportunity. And I love your comment because I think not enough businesses think about this. Do I just want to exist
hmm
or do I want to be competitive?
Yes.
And I think your organization has served many different types of companies over the years with technology integrations and technology leadership to show them, how to do security, how to set things up in
hmm
their organization. What are the attributes that you're looking for when you go talk to an organization that is exhibiting this competitive nature? Is there things you look for when you're going to talk to them that you think, oh, this is a good fit for an AI first company?
Well, it's interesting because I would have always thought it was the people with the new product, something sexy and new. But it honestly isn't what I've seen anecdotally. And I don't know, haven't done enough, but sometimes it's your more traditional, your farms, your cleaning services, robotics have been in the factory more. I thought it would be, someone who's developed a very cutting edge product in in an industry that's already their DNA is more they sometimes aren't the ones because it's not as big a lift. But if you go to a farm, or you go to somebody who's growing things, who needs trends and has been already doing this stuff out in the fields, or in their factory floor, they are the ones that seem to be more adopting this quicker, or maybe it's more interesting to me. But it's always has, it's either a stakeholder who just is that kind of person, always thinking of different ways to do it, or somebody who has big influence within the organization, who's able to say, hey, let me have this piece. And it started a bit with data. You can sort of tell people that they run their organizations through trending, and they like to put the first type of new machinery in, or so there's just people like that they take risks, but they're very smart in the way they do it.
That's interesting, and that's going to transition next to my next question around talent. But I want to take a minute and talk about what you just said, because I think it's very interesting. I was recently talking to a contractor, a construction company, and not a big organization. And this individual said, AI has changed my life, because in the past it used to take me a week, 2 weeks to get a proposal out the door. And now I'm using AI to create these proposals in minutes. I know exactly what resources I need. I know exactly what I have to buy for the job. And let's be honest, it's time to get back to the customer. Time to market is really, really important in some industries. But the comment I heard the most at the most recent series of AI summits I've been attending is people aren't so much thinking about time to market anymore. They're thinking about time to value. How
Yes.
quickly can I make this pay off for me? And if I change this process, do I make more money? And I
Mm-hmm.
think you're bang on with the way you have to think about it and the way you have to look at it. And I think those
Mm-hmm.
are the kinds of people that in these organizations need to sort of rally and say, this is what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it just leads into my next question is, as a Microsoft partner, what kind of talent are you looking for? What does the Microsoft partner organization of the future need to look like with respect to talent?
Yeah, so I think that myself started this business because I love solutioning. I really love it. I love looking at business. I love learning how you make everything from shopping carts, hats, clothes. And I loved finding solutions. So, when I started this, I would go in and listen to people and, be able to save them time and automate. Through the last, years, I think most partners came up with very structured approaches. As you grew and you had heard it before, it became very structured. Yes, we can do this and we can do that. And I think that we have to go back a bit to really that solutioning, but not, you do a demo and you solution, like truly, that even the discovery I think that a lot of partners do is really like, this is what we could optimize. But if you go back to our roots, as let's go in and find people that can look at businesses and honestly find these are the areas that you can improve, optimize, and do things that you've always wanted, never could, but also that you don't even know. If you think of AI agents, they're going to go out and do things, but also ask you those questions that you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. And so the talent that we need are people that really are able to communicate that in a meaningful way and then make it part of our solution. I think a lot of partners are tripping on there's nothing to offer. There's no product to offer. I don't think we're there, right? Right now, it's really just part of the tech stack. And so I want people that are able to do that. They don't necessarily have to be doing AI now, but they have to be people who solution, understand, and when they solution, they're thinking ahead. What might come out that could do this?
Okay, I want to tell you the three reasons why I love that, and I love
Mm-hmm.
that answer. As you know, I run another podcast called Women Talk Tech, and
Mm-hmm.
we've been struggling as we've evolved the podcast over the last 10 years that the numbers of women in tech aren't going up.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've talked to many women in tech and said, why did you get into the tech sector? the answer I always heard from people, and they kind of slid into it sideways. They didn't go into the tech sector. They didn't graduate
Hmm.
from high school saying, I want to
Yeah.
be in the tech sector.
Hmm.
They slid into it sideways because they like to solve
Hmm.
problems.
Yes.
They were good listeners. They could
Hmm.
listen and then they could say, I can solve this problem doing
Hmm.
this, this, and this.
Hmm.
This is why I personally am particularly bullish about AI,
Hmm.
because we don't have to be coders anymore.
Hmm.
We can be people who can use tools. The
Hmm.
average person who creates business value can use
Hmm.
tools to optimize
Hmm.
that business value.
Hmm.
So I think what you've just said is brilliant. And
Hmm.
I love the fact that you're thinking about it in terms of how do we build a solution around it.
Hmm.
I think you're absolutely right. Too many people are trying to sell a license and sell a
Hmm.
product. And we've even
Hmm.
seen the first evolution of Copilot briefings are all about
Hmm.
this is how you sell the license
Hmm.
around
Hmm.
modern work or whatever.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think that's short sighted. I think we
Hmm.
need to bring, as you said, those people into our organization who are good listeners, who know how to solve problems and know how to create a process around doing that, not just taking something out of the box and saying, I heard you say you have a hammer, so here's a
Hmm.
nail.
Right. Right.
And I love that you're sitting in this position right now.
Me too.
Uh, 30 years in
Hmm.
business
Hmm.
and a long tenured history in the tech
Hmm.
sector. And,
Hmm.
I feel like the voice of reason is finally
Hmm.
upon us as we
Yes.
start to use AI. And I think that's really quite remarkable.
Yes, and it's allowing us, it started with Microsoft releasing the stack more. So as Azure became, more evolved and Teams has become more involved in Fabric and, on and on. So it was AI and Copilot are on top of that. So there's a lot of the technology came out, but people don't know what to do with it. They're like, okay, I have data, I have this, and so I think that what you're going to see with AI is that it's going to allow them to now take this Microsoft platform that they're already on, expand those offerings, and now finally be able to have something that pulls it together without hiring a bunch of people to do it. And it's also scary for consultants because they're like, oh, we're not going to need as many, coders, or we're not going to need as many people on our staff. But, there were days when accountants didn't know what they were going to do and they didn't have to type tax returns. You find other ways to
Yeah.
evolve.
Yeah, and I think it's we still need big thinkers and marketing copilot. We call it hybrid intelligence. You
Hmm.
still need
Yes.
people who know how to move things forward. You
Yes.
particularly need strong project managers in this new
Hmm.
world, and I think there's
Exactly.
there's elements that we're all seeing. I know you've got big plans, and I can't
Hmm.
wait to see what you do next. I am so excited for the road that TMC is on. If you had to give advice to another Microsoft partner, particularly about mergers, acquisitions, growth in their organization, what would you tell them?
I would say that be sure before you do this what you want to do, because you shouldn't do it when you're tired and ready to, the business is going down. You may be tired, but not, don't do it on the downside. I would say also, quite a lot of us, when we founded our companies, we just thought we'd keep them forever. And, be aware of what you need. You have a vision and have goals, and be aware of what you need to achieve them, and then don't be so internally down. Look outside. Can I achieve these in the world that we live today? Can I really play in this channel as it consolidates? Because I had the privilege of picking my partner. I had multiple very good people, and I was able to pick some partners that believed in my vision and are allowing me to do it because I wanted to do it. I feel like I can do it. Be very self-aware. Can you? Are you the right people? And then can you work with these people every day, and do they have your same goals? And then once you do it, it's really communication again. It's change management all over again. The best of the best people, two cultures. I heard from someone last week, unwritten rules. You could think you're exactly the same, and then you get together and there's these unwritten rules that one organization has that the other doesn't quite know yet. And
Right.
lastly, be patient. There's a lot of noise, both for the founders and for the team. be honest. If you really, honestly feel something, people really respect honesty, and put your all into being behind it being a success, because it is a bumpy road whenever you combine people, organizations. I mean, we combined our
Mhm.
GP and BC in our own practice. It was like two different to one ERP. So imagine, and be thoughtful. It's something, you have to be thoughtful. And number one though is transparent and communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely amazing advice. I can't wait to see what you do next. I know you're going to blaze a trail for a lot of people, and I'm
Mhm.
excited about it and really appreciate you taking the time to be on the hot seat. I've been speaking with Jennifer Harris, who's the CEO of TMC, Technology Management Concepts. She's just recently received an investment. She's got big plans, and I can't wait to see those plans for TMC as a Microsoft partner and as a leader in the channel. You've been listening to another episode of The Hot Seat. I'm your host, Marie Wiese, and this is the podcast, the only podcast for Microsoft partners to tell their stories, to be in the hot seat, and tackle some of the tough issues of today. Thanks so much for being on the show, Jennifer.
Thank you, Marie. I'm very excited. I'm excited to be part of this ecosystem right now. I think there's room for all of us to have a fantastic year, and I look forward to seeing everybody where they go. Marie, where your podcasts go. Thank you for championing us, and TMC is going to have a great year too. So
I
thank you.
think they will, and thank you for being in the hot seat.